Sandra stood in the rain, her clothes clinging to her thin frame. She looked up at the woman she once called her sister. "Rose, we grew up together. We shared the same bed in the village. How can you do this?" Rose laughed, and the sound was like glass breaking. "Luck is a limited resource, Sandra. You've had your turn. Now it's mine." Sandra wandered the streets of Lagos for days. Without her star, people looked through her as if she were made of glass. When she tried to beg for food, people pushed her away with disgust. Her beauty had not just faded, it had curdled. Her hair became matted, and her eyes, once bright with intelligence, became clouded with a thick grey fog of despair. Eventually, she found herself at the outskirts of the city, in a sprawling, chaotic marketplace, where the smell of rotting fish and burning rubber choked the air. She became a market ghost. She slept on cardboard boxes and helped the pepper sellers carry their heavy loads just for a handful of bruised tomatoes. She lived in this hell for months, her spirit breaking more each day. She began to believe that she was born to be a failure. She forgot that she was ever a regional director. She forgot that she was ever loved. One afternoon, during a torrential downpour, Sandra huddled under a tattered plastic sheet near the market gutters. Beside her sat an old man, his clothes a patchwork of rags, his eyes milky white with cataracts. A beggar who never asked for money, only for the stories of the people who passed by. As Sandra shivered, the old man turned his sightless eyes toward her. He sniffed the air and frowned. "Daughter," he said, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to come from the earth itself. "Why is there a hole where your son should be?" Sandra didn't look up. "I'm just a beggar, old man. I have nothing." "You have nothing now," the old man said, leaning closer. "But the space you occupy in the spirit world is huge. You carry the scent of a queen, but you are wearing the skin of a toad. Who took it? Who held the glass to your heart?" Sandra froze. The memory of that night, the coldness in the room, the hum of the air rushed back with the force of a tidal wave. My friend, Rose, she had a mirror. The old man nodded slowly. The mirror of exchange. A wicked tool for a hollow soul. She didn't just take your luck, she took your star, your divine spark. She is living your life, eating your fruit, and sleeping in your bed. But a stolen star is like a hot coal in a wooden bowl. It is burning her from the inside, even if she doesn't show it yet. "How do I take it back?" Sandra whispered, her voice trembling. "I am nothing. I am weak." "The mirror is the key and the cage," the old man said. "The law of the spirit is absolute. If the original owner stands before the thief and forces the thief to look into that mirror, the reflection will recognize its true home. The light will break the glass to return to you. But you must do it before the wedding vows are sealed. Once they say 'I do' before the altar of God, the exchange becomes permanent. The wedding is in 3 days." Sandra gasped. "Then you must move," the old man said, handing her a small dried root. "Chew this. It will give you the strength of your ancestors for 72 hours. Go to the house of God. Do not go to fight with hands. Go to reclaim with your presence." While Sandra was gathering her strength, Rose was living in a nightmare of her own making. To the world, she was the perfect bride to be, but in the privacy of her bedroom, she was falling apart. The golden orb inside her chest was too powerful. It was restless. Every night, She felt it burning against her ribs, as if it were trying to punch its way out. Her skin, though glossy, felt like it was on fire. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sandra's face, not as a beggar, but as a judge. Daniel was also changing. He was under a spell, but the spell was thin. He would look at Rose and feel a strange sense of wrongness. He would lean in to kiss her and pull back because she smelled of incense and old copper instead of the jasmine scent he remembered from Sandra. "Rose," Daniel said one evening as they sat in their luxury living room, "why do you keep that mirror in your bag at all times? You even take it to the bathroom. You never let me touch it." Rose gripped her handbag, where the cloth-wrapped mirror of exchange sat. "It's a family heirloom, Daniel. It brings me luck. Don't touch it. Never touch it." Her voice was sharp, almost hysterical. She knew that the moment Sandra's image touched that glass, the game was over. She had guards posted at the office and the apartment. She had told everyone that Sandra had gone mad and was dangerous. She thought she was safe. The day of the wedding arrived with a sky so blue it looked painted. The Cathedral of St. Jude was decorated with thousands of white roses. The creme de la creme of Lagos society was there. Daniel stood at the altar in a white tuxedo, looking handsome but strangely dazed, like a man walking in a dream. Rose arrived in a limousine. She was a vision in a gown that cost more than a village school. She felt the power of the star pulsing in her, but the burning in her chest was now almost unbearable. She clutched her bridal bouquet, and hidden within the flowers, she had stitched a small pocket for the mirror of exchange. She wouldn't let it out of her sight for a second. As she began her walk down the aisle, the organ music swelled. The guests stood up in awe. Rose smiled, but her eyes were darting around, looking for any sign of her best friend. The ceremony proceeded. The priest spoke of love and destiny. He reached the part that every thief fears. If there is anyone here who knows why these two should not be joined in holy wedlock, let them speak now, or forever hold their peace. A heavy silence fell over the cathedral. Rose held her breath. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. She let out a sigh of relief. She didn't come, she thought. I won. I object. The voice wasn't loud, but it carried to every corner of the church. It sounded like the tolling of a funeral bell. The heavy oak doors at the back of the cathedral creaked open. A woman stood there. She was dressed in a tattered, dirt-stained wrapper. Her feet were bare and bleeding. Her hair was a wild nest of tangles. The guests gasped, and some stood up in fear. "Security!" Rose screamed, her voice breaking. "Throw that madwoman out! She's dangerous!" But the security guards, who had been paid well to keep Sandra out, found themselves unable to move. It was as if their feet were rooted to the marble floor. Sandra walked down the aisle. Every step she took seemed to shake the ground. As she got closer, the star inside Rose began to hum so loudly that the candles on the altar began to flicker and die. "Rose," Sandra said, standing at the base of the altar, "you took my bed, you took my job, you took my man, but you cannot take the blood that flows in my veins." Daniel looked at Sandra, and for the first time in months, the fog in his eyes began to clear. "Sandra, is that really you?" "Daniel, look at her!" Rose shrieked, pulling the bouquet to her chest. "She's a lunatic. She's jealous. Someone get her out of here." Sandra didn't lung at Rose. She didn't scream. She simply reached out a hand. "The mirror, Rose. Show the world who you really are. Look into it." "No." Rose backed away, tripping over her long train. She fell against the altar rail, and as she did, the mirror of exchange slipped from the flowers and slid across the floor, stopping right at Sandra's bare feet. The church went silent. Sandra picked up the mirror. The dark wood seemed to warm up in her hand. She turned the glass toward Rose. "Look, Rose. See the reflection of a thief." Rose tried to cover her eyes, but a force stronger than her will forced her to look. The moment Rose's eyes met her own reflection in the glass held by Sandra, a sound like a thunderclap echoed through the cathedral. The mirror didn't just crack, it disintegrated into a million diamond-like shards. A pillar of golden light erupted from Rose's chest. It was so bright that the guests had to shield their eyes. Rose let out a scream that wasn't human. It was the sound of a spirit being torn apart. The golden orb hovered in the air, spinning faster and faster, creating a whirlwind that blew the flowers off the altar. Then, with a sound like a heartbeat, the orb shot across the space and slammed into Sandra's chest. The transformation was instantaneous and terrifyingly beautiful. In front of everyone, Sandra's rags seemed to vanish, replaced by a radiant, unearthly glow. Her skin smoothed out, turning back into polished bronze. Her hair grew long and lustrous. She stood tall, a queen restored to her throne. Rose, on the other hand, began to shrink. Her expensive wedding dress became baggy as her body withered. Her skin turned grey and wrinkled. Her hair fell out in clumps. Within seconds, she looked like a woman who had lived 3 lifetimes of misery. She collapsed on the floor, a heap of silk and broken bones. Daniel stepped towards Sandra, tears streaming down his face. "Sandra, I didn't know. Something was over my eyes. Please, forgive me." Sandra looked at him. She looked at the man who couldn't tell the difference between her soul and a shadow. She looked at the guests who had once toasted her and then ignored her when she was in the gutters. She reached down and picked up a single white rose from the floor. "Daniel," she said softly, "you didn't recognize the sun when it was covered by a cloud. That means you never truly knew the sun." She turned to Rose, who was sobbing on the floor, a broken, elderly version of herself. "You wanted my life, Rose. You had it for a moment. Was it worth the burn?" Sandra didn't stay for the reception. She didn't go back to the office. She walked out of the cathedral. Within weeks, everything she lost returned to her, her position, her clarity, her strength. The fog lifted from her mind. Opportunities found her again. Her life began to align as if it had been waiting for her return. She lived well again, comfortably, peacefully. But Sandra made one final decision. She stayed away from friendships. Not out of bitterness, but wisdom. She learned that not everyone who walks beside you is walking with you. Some are only studying your footsteps, waiting for the chance to replace them. Sandra kept her circle empty and her destiny guarded. Rose was never seen again. Some say she was taken by the spirits she bargained with. Others say she wanders the market gutters as a grey ghost, forever looking for a reflection she will never find again. The people of the village still tell the story to their daughters. They tell them that your destiny is a gift from the heavens, and while a thief might borrow it for a season, the true owner always holds the key. For what is written by the finger of God can never be rubbed out by the hand of man. Thanks for watching Luchy's Storytime. Kindly tell us where you are watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.